Yes, guys, I'm Si. Welcome to Cardiff City World. It's the season's ended, really. Well, certainly for Cardiff City. So we've got new things to talk about, and as is tradition, Cardiff City. It's never boring. It's never boring to cover and talk about Cardiff City. There's always something, and whilst it looked not too long ago as if the manager was staying, he's gone back to Turkey, and no news is no news. This doesn't look promising, but look, regardless, they need to make a decision and they need to make it quick. As I've been saying since things took a bit of a turn and earlier in the season, Cardiff should have had a short list of managers ready to interview and add full workup and profile on all of them, so that if he didn't stay for whatever reason, whether that was us or them or whoever made that decision, they could hit the ground running and get a replacement in. As usual, it doesn't feel like that's the case. But I thought what we'd do tonight is have a chat about potential replacements. And I'm not saying he won't resign. I'm not saying that I don't want him to. I'm just having a discussion about some of the options. We'll talk about the options generally, and then I'll sort of go through the 5 that I think would be the best candidates, not necessarily that they're, going to come to Cardiff for a variety of reasons, which we'll also discuss as well. But these would be the 5 that I kind of think would probably be the best options. In terms of Bulut, look, is it a coincidence that he has been linked to Panathinaikos? He's been linked to Hull and all these. Is that his agent doing what agents should do and working up good things for him? Or is that genuine interest from them? Obviously, there's the Turkish links within the whole owners and system, the Greek and Turkish leagues, etc. He's well known. It's difficult to say. I don't think I don't think he's going to struggle to get a job. And I think, right, with Bulut, there's a couple of ways you've got to look at it, I suppose. So on one side, you have, do the fans want him? Blah, blah, blah. There's a bit of a split, I think, with that. But from his point of view, I do understand why he's not willing to accept a 12-month contract with, if you get top 6, you then get an extension, because he's done the last season without his family being here permanently. And I think for him to really settle and do his job as well as he is capable of doing, he needs to be settled away from his job. So he needs to get his family over here. And I think I can understand his reluctance to uproot his family to another country. I don't know. I assume he's got children. I don't know. But just from that point of view, if you're going to uproot your family to a different country, you want some level of assurance that it's like a permanent move. So I do get that. From a Cardiff point of view, look, I think it's shambolic how you can expect to build anything offering 12-month contracts to managers. I think that's really, really poor. And Reece has made a point there about, if the next manager comes in, it's going to be a TAN appointment. And I think that's the worrying thing, is regardless of what you think of Bulut, I think that the board have done their best to try and back him. I'm not saying that they've done a good job, but I think they have tried, hence why we ended up with Jeju, because they wanted to get him a striker. Was it the strike he wanted? Absolutely not. But there's many things which go into that, whether it's organisation and preparation in getting signings over the line, or whether it's money. There's all sorts of reasons why Cardiff, as a club, should do better, could do better. But I think, generally speaking, the board has wanted Bulut to succeed, of course. But I also think the owner, it wasn't the owner's pick. If rumours are led to be believed, the owner wanted Steve Morrison back, which is a bizarre one, because we still don't really know why Steve Morrison was sacked in the first place. Like, there's never been any clarification from the football club, I imagine, that I'm aware of. I mean, someone will tell me if they know, like, the reason, or if the club has said the reason why Steve Morrison has been sacked. I couldn't tell you. And I mean, I've got my finger fairly on the pulse in terms of news and whatnot. But I mean, it's a strange one. And look, there's all sorts of names being flung about as potential replacements. I'll throw one out one straight away, right? Which people will be like, what the fuck? What are you on about? No, that's bad, blah, blah, blah. And people will not like it at all. Ole Gunnar Solskjaer. There you go. Wouldn't be the worst choice. I think he's progressed massively as a manager. I think the United job was probably a bit too much for him. But when you look at what's happened since and some of the football that they played under him, and look, I'm not by no means comparing Cardiff City and Manchester United and the size of it, but I think tactically he improved. And if you look, and I'm not, by the way, I'm not saying they should do him. I'm just saying he's a better option than some of the options I've seen thrown about. If you look at United's record against teams like Pep's teams under him, he had a really, really good record because tactically he did certain things, changed certain things to play against them. However, then there's the other side of it. It's a different level of quality to Cardiff, and it was a weird era. Like, it was a weird thing because it was like Malcolm probably wasn't sacked for football reasons. Malky had never been in the relegation zone at that point, I don't think, and it was just a weird thing, which probably wasn't great. Like GD Parry says, United finished higher under Ole Gunnar Solskjaer than Ten Hag, but so that's a bit of an outlier. I've seen some people saying give it to Aaron. Someone tell me the last player manager that worked. Now, I'm not saying Aaron Ramsey will go on and be. I think he's got all the kind of the personality traits and the mentality to go and be a great coach and a great manager. I really do. But I don't think now's the time. And I think Cardiff is such a massive rebuild that I think you'd be asking a hell of a lot of someone who's got zero managerial experience to then say, there you go, sort Cardiff. That's massive. And look, if it didn't work, it'd be a sad way for his career to really finish, because he probably finishes as a player. If he gets sacked, it's all getting very messy. If you wanted to go for a Welsh young manager, personally, the dream one for me, I would like to see Bellamy with Osian Roberts, but no chance Bellamy comes back while the owner's the owner. So that's the end of Bellamy. On the side note of that, one of the people who does make my final five later, who I'll go into more detail when we do the list, but Osian Roberts, I think, is a man who time and time again has shown that he can get a team playing together. He can build morale. He's tactically very, very clever. And he's gone out to Italy and got them promoted for the first time in, I think it's 20 years, to the top league in one season, playing some fantastic football. I'm pretty sure he's still based in Cardiff. And I think there's a few things, isn't there? Why would he come and sign a 12-month contract at Cardiff, uproot it when he's just got Como promoted into Serie A? If he was going to take a Cardiff job, say he was interested, you'd got to give him 3-year contract and give him back in as best you can. And unfortunately, it is a bit of a poison chalice. I got to say. Then you've got some interesting ones. You've got Liam Senior's just left Hull, played some great football, but spent a lot of money. Steve Cooper, right? I think people misinterpreted what I said when I was on the phone. And Steve Cooper is a phenomenal manager, and I would love him to be the Cardiff City manager. But I think it's highly unlikely for a number of reasons. Firstly, he himself is on pretty big money. Secondly, he would want money to spend. Forrest spent a fortune. He would want time, and he would want money to spend. And also, his assistant everywhere he goes is Alan Tate. Now, all right, if you could get past, you could say we've had Andy Legg, we've had Frank Burrows, who did both and represented both. I understand that. But there's one thing having Steve Cooper as a former Swansea manager, and that's fine. Like, he's the best man. You can't have Alan Tate involved in Cardiff. And I'm sure Alan Tate does not want to be involved in Cardiff. But can you imagine him with a Cardiff City jacket on? I can't. And that, for me, is a massive thing. Cooper walked away from Swansea because they wouldn't back him. And if you look at how much money he spent at Nottingham Forest, like, it's just unrealistic. Alan Tate is an absolute cunt. And yeah. Darren Moore, I think, is a shout. GD Parry, I think he did a phenomenal job at Sheffield Wednesday. And one of the reasons I was hoping they were going to go down this year was because of the way they treated him after he did so well. Paul says Ocean Roberts was the catalyst in the Welsh squad with Coleman. He knows his tactics. Yeah, I think Ocean Roberts should have got a Wales job, in my opinion, after Coleman. Such is life. And he certainly probably should have got it when Giggs left, but I understand the reasons why and blah, blah, blah. I'm not going to go into that. What we will end up with, Reece, you are spot on, is a 60-plus-year-old who plays long ball football like a Nigel Pearson. I wouldn't be surprised to see Neil Warnock come and do it. Because when you think about what sort of manager is going to take a 12-month contract with incentives, it's going to be someone at the end of their career. Now, could Neil Warnock get this Cardiff side play in, and could he get the fans on side? Yeah, he could. But like, one of the things I enjoyed at the start of this season was the football we played. And I know people now are moaning about that, but at the start of the season, that possession-based football was played with a bit of snap and a bit of press and purpose, and it was really enjoyable to watch. We were really good going forward, and it fell apart, and probably fell apart for a number of reasons. I think one of those reasons was Mark McGuinness's long-term injury. One of those reasons was Aaron Ramsey's injury. There was issues within the he didn't have the squad. Another kind of interesting one, Pascal Jensen, born in London, is a Netherlands. He's got Netherlands citizenship. Tends to play a 4-3-3 and is quite a defensive manager, which is ironic. Like, people moaning about the same people moaning about Bulut style of player, the same people who I've seen suggesting Pascal Jensen, who's been a manager of Alkmaar, assistant on Alkmaar. He's done he's done very well. He looks like an interesting choice, a very good manager. Is it realistically? And there's some far-fetched ones, like you say, Jamie, there, like Danny Roll, and there's a couple of others floating about. Look, you've got Nathan Jones, but he's like, I think it was Rob who said on the Flower Hour the other day, he's almost eased off a little bit from where he was. Like, he seems to have been, sometimes the right club is the right club for certain people. For instance, when he was at Luton, Nathan Jones seemed to be able to perform miracles on a shoestring. But every time he's gone elsewhere, he hasn't really done it. I think he's at Charlton, isn't he? Not for me. Like, I don't see it. Maybe he's a Cardiff boy. He's a Cardiff fan. So I don't think that would be the worst appointment. But equally, like, why would he leave a job which is, Charlton got a fairly decent setup. They've got a good academy for Cardiff, who are dishing out 12-month contracts. It's an interesting one that Rob's just put in. Will Still is currently at French club Reims, I think. Reims. He's very young. He's 31. Done very, very well. Plays a really nice style of football. I would like to see Cardiff give it to a young manager who's going to play progressive football. So Jim just said he's left there. So yeah, no, look, I wouldn't be devastated if we gave it to someone like Will Still. But again, what's the point if you're only going to give him 12 months, and if he doesn't do it, like, it just, right, if he doesn't get in the top 8, he's sacked. It's pointless. Like, this team needs completely rebuilding. This season was predominantly built on frees and loans and whatnot, and some players who've probably failed in recent years. Look, we need something different. We need someone to get it and have it for a couple of years, whether that's Bulut. I mean, to me, that makes the most sense to give it to Bulut now because he's done a year. He's had a look. He's got his feet under the table. Errol Bulut's definitely, but by the way, he's not gone by any means. I'm just having a discussion because the season's over, so we've got no game to talk about. But equally, I think him going back to Turkey and the contract not being signed is probably not a great sign. So Darren Pearce, I've seen a few people saying that, like, and Reece, has said there, like, he'll probably get the job when he's sacked. And look, I got slated a bit again when I was like on the phone him, and people were saying give it to Aaron Ramsey, and I said, look, if you were going to give it to someone like Aaron Ramsey, why wouldn't you give it to Darren Pearce, who's at least got a bit of experience, has brought through these young players you now see excelling in the first team. Now, people can moan and groan about the 23s not doing that well as a team, but his job is here, and he said that. And for people who at the live event, which I put on with him, he even sort of said that, like, his job is not to go win titles and things with the 23s. It's to prepare players to play first team football for Cardiff City first. And if they don't get, if Cardiff, for whatever reason, they don't get to Cardiff, it's to go and play first team football elsewhere. Like, that's the job of an academy 23 manager, whatever you want to call it. Now, am I saying Darren's ready for the first team job? No, I'm not. Of course I'm not. That would be very naive. What I'm saying is, if you're going to give it to Ramsey as a player manager, if you're going to give it to even Sol Bamba, why would you not give it to someone who's already working with these players and the young players who've come through? The interesting thing, and look, I'll caveat it as well, and I always caveat it with, like, Darren is someone who I know and I'm friends with, so I'm probably a little bit biased. But my point, again, I'll say, I'm not saying that he should get it. I'm not saying he's ready to have a first-team job at Cardiff. He would probably say that himself. What I'm saying is, if you're going to just pluck someone random or try and get Aaron to do it as a player manager, surely it makes more sense to go with the 23s manager who's already worked with these players who we're seeing break into the first team, just from a logic point of view. I mean, it is so weird. Like, I like Will Stills, a good little shout, that one. Let me bring up that feed. I'm interested. Throw some more suggestions at me. Darren Moore, I think, is an interesting one. But again, like, realistically, I say again, which managers are going to come and do it on a 12-month contract with not a lot of money to spend, with a board or at least an owner who's a bit eccentric, shall we say? It's different. Like, we're going to end up with, if Bulut leaves, we are going to end up with a Warnock, a Morrison, and a Nigel Pearson, like someone like this. You just are, because they're the sort of managers who are going to take a 12-month job. Like, you have to be realistic to what Cardiff are. And this is why I always say, like, the grass is not always greener. And people who are getting frustrated with Bulut and the way he's playing, let him implement his style of play with players that he wants and he's signed. And I think you see more like you saw at the start of the season than what you saw at the end of the season. And then you can add in the youth of a Conte, the Colwells. You've got Isaac Davis coming back. Is he going to do a job? Obviously, he's got to the playoffs with the Belgium team. I saw someone say Bellamy and Bamba. I just cannot find a way that I just can't see how Craig Bellamy comes back to the football club whilst Vincent Tan and the rest of them are there. I just can't. And he's, from what I gather, he loves it at at Burnley, and he loves working with company. But obviously they have gone down, so maybe and let's be honest, like with Bellamy, like they didn't back him when there was allegations. They hung him out to dry basically, and he's just not going to come back, is he? Under Vincent Tan. And I've seen a few people saying like Sol Bamba. Like, to me, I get the sentiment, and I think it would unite the fans in the short term, but I don't see a world where that is gonna go well long term. I just don't. And if I love Sol Bamba, but I just don't. Reece says, his record isn't the best, but I was always a fan of Jack Ross. Thought he was unlucky at Sunderland. I know things went pear-shaped at Dundee, but the club was in a terrible mess. Yeah. Well, so GD Parry's just put a comment there, which is an interesting one. He says, has Bamba got the connections to get players in? So I guess there's a couple of ways to look at that, mate. One way is that a club the size of Cardiff City should, and I say should, have scouts and analysts pretty much all over Europe in some form, whether they're freelance or they're, like linked just to Cardiff. They should also, they have a transfer committee which is made up of the manager, the chairman, Kenneth Joe, and someone else, and then they've all, I think the chairman's got a veto vote, and then obviously Vincent Tan signs off on the money side of things, which has been one of my biggest criticisms of the football club, that we haven't got a proper football structure above the manager, regardless of who the manager is. But I don't know. Look, it obviously helps. Look at Bulut. He was able to bring in Siopis and Gutas, who've been probably, but them two, NG, Ruben Colwell, were probably the best players for Cardiff this year, with Nat Phillips. So, like, from that side, like, there's obviously a benefit. And I mean, Sol Bamba's not long retired, so I'm sure he knows players. Whether he's got, and the other side of it is you've got to have the nous, and it's difficult. It's difficult. I would be just. I think. Look, I understand the sentiment for a Bamba, even for an Aaron Ramsey as a player manager. I think it's too early for Aaron, and I think if Aaron can get a really good preseason under him now, I think we could see a lot from him next year. And if we can get 20 games out of him, then that's massive. If, that would be huge. Just having a quick look at some of the other suggestions that I saw. Pascal Jensen, I think, is a decent shout. The thing with Pascal Jensen, right, for me, is if you are not happy with what Bulut is, kind of the way Bulut's playing, Pascal Jensen for me is pretty similar. Like, I think Rosinia would be decent, but he's not gonna. I don't think he can work with a budget that he'd have at Cardiff. An interesting one I saw was Ryan Mason. That's an interesting shout. Very, very highly rated football mind, Ryan Mason. And really, really high regarded as a coach. But again, would he come? Would he do it on a budget? I think obviously he did a decent job like when he took over at Spurs in the interim. Look, the problem with Ryan Mason for me is, like, he's the assistant manager at Spurs at the moment, I think, or assistant coach or something like that. And that's, do you know, Reece has just said there, I'd approach Birmingham for Tony Mowbray, gets players playing for him. And obviously Birmingham side went down under Rowett. Yeah. I thought Birmingham at the start of the season were excellent, but I believe wasn't that when they were under John Eustace then, weren't they? People correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm interested. Like, tell me who you think. Paul Heckenbottom is a decent man, a decent enough job at Sheffield United, or go the Leicester route. They appointed Pep's number 2, and maybe look at the number 2. Well, I mentioned like Solskjaer earlier as like a long shot, and kind of said like, look at what Kieran McKenna and Michael Carrick are doing. Great jobs, both of them. Obviously, they were his assistants. There's sometimes it's finding a good coach who hasn't been given an opportunity. I think we Cardiff and Wales missed the boat with Osher and Roberts massively. Is it too late for Cardiff to maybe get Osher and Roberts involved? They'd have to give him a long-term contract, I think, to tempt him. Let's have a look at some of these other. Someone said get Lamucci back. Not so sure about that. I thought he did a good job at what he was doing. Ramsey with Osher and Roberts, people said. We'll end up with Steve Cooper. Let's be honest. Let's be honest. Are you guys excited by the potential of seeing Isaac Davis, Kean Ashford, and Ruben Colwell all playing for Cardiff City next year? Chris Hughton wouldn't be my. Paul said Chris Hughton's a shout, but he wouldn't be my first choice. Yeah, I'm not a fan of him, I've got to say. GD Parry says, was about to say Wagner, but he's at Norwich. However, if they lose at Leeds, will the Canaries say off Widdowson? Yeah, well, this is it. No, you never know who's going to be floating about. I'll give what my list is in a minute. I think that Osher Roberts would be tempted by the Cardiff job. I understand that he's still based in Cardiff. He's still involved within like the Welsh setup and stuff like that, and the Welsh FA love him. He's so highly rated by players, like Reese has just said there. He's thought of by people like Henri and Cesc Fabregas, and like Wales massively missed the boat with Osher Roberts, massively, and I think Cardiff could get something out of it. I think it could be a. Remember what I said a couple of weeks ago? I also said it today. Sometimes it's just forget records and experience and age and all the different things that we kind of fans and social media look at. Like sometimes it's just the right person at the right club. My example, Nathan Jones at Luton was the right player at the right manager at the right club. Sorry. Could Osher Roberts be the right man? Could Cardiff just be the right place for him and it'll click and he'd be the one? I don't know. I think, again, is he going to leave? Like, he's just made history in Italy by getting Como promoted. Would he leave that for a 12-month contract? I don't know. I mean, I think so. So basically, he went over to Como initially as the director of development, and then he took over. I think he's only the caretaker, isn't he? At Como, is he the permanent manager there? I mean, I'm sure they'll offer him the job now, but I'm not sure. Someone will have to confirm that for me because this might be wrong. Looking at it, but it's a shout and a half. He is. I think we'll end up with Steve Morrison, is my personal opinion. Not who I want by any means. In my opinion, that's who Vincent Tan wants, and usually Vincent Tan gets what he wants. Osher Roberts is up there. He's in terms of current football, people involved in football, he's in my top 5 people I'd like to interview. He is like, I'm so fascinated by his rise through the Welsh setup and his influence on that Welsh setup. like from a playing career point of view, never like, he played sort of almost like the local teams. He played for Bangor, played for Bethesda Athletic, he played for New Mexico Chili's in the 90s, and then he managed them, and then he went to the 16s with Wales, the 18s, Wales B, Porthmadog for a 8-year period, and then he got the Wales assistant job, did that for a few years and did a phenomenal job. Then he was at Palace for a couple of years, and then Como tempted him over there with that development job. Poor Vincent Tan can kiss my ass already, mate. Sorry to say, and if that means I don't get certain interviews, then that's what happens. It'll never be the same until he's gone. Just rip the heart and soul out of it. I accept he's kept us going in recent years and the rest of it, but in my opinion, the second that if they win that court case, the second he gets the majority or a big chunk of the money back, I think he's gone. He's got my problem, he's got no love for it. He doesn't understand the fans. He doesn't understand the club, and he certainly doesn't understand football. So that's, to me, is a massive issue. So let's go into my list. And this is kind of just like the 5 that I've whittled down. Maybe some are not realistic. Maybe some are. I mean, I'll try and put them in a rough order, but it's not nailed on. It's just out of all, I kind of had a quick look at different suggestions, and this was just my 5. For instance, I haven't even considered Craig Bellamy because I don't think he would come under Vincent Tan. John Sheridan, yeah, he's got a good agent, mate. So number 5 for me is see, it was going to be. No, I'm going to change that. I'm changing it. Will Still, number 5. Number 5 is Will Still. I really like that shout from Rob, and I think let's be proactive and let's build for the future and do something different. So Will Still, number 5. And this is not who I want, by the way, necessarily. This is like trying to be sort of realistic with it. So it's like a mix of realistic and what I expect them to go for, and then maybe a little bit of who I'd like. So you got Will Still. I'd like that. Love Bellas, but it is what it is. Number 4, Liam Rosenior. I think it just feels like that's come at the right time. He played really good football with Hull. Do I think it's really? Probably not. I think he'd want money to spend. But then that's the same as number 3, who is Steve Cooper, because it's unrealistic. Like if so, let's create a hypothetical. If Steve Cooper comes to Cardiff, okay, I think most people would accept Steve Cooper. You might get a few bit of grief, ex-Swansea, blah, blah, but that's happened before. But he will not be able to bring Alan Tate with him, so he'd have to find a different assistant. That's just a fact. Because I think if they tried to bring in Alan Tate as number 2, that would just show how out of touch and misguided the football club and the people who run it are with the fans and with the world. I don't think Alan Tate would do it anyway. But let's say Steve Cooper. So Will Still, Liam Rosenior, Steve Cooper. Number 2, one man we haven't mentioned, or we mentioned him briefly earlier, Neil Warnock. I think there's a chance that we end up with Neil Warnock simply because I think he loves the club, he loves the city, and he would do it on a 12-month rolling. Simple. So that makes sense to me. Do I think it's the right job? No. And I don't think it's the right choice, being honest. But I accept that there is reasons why. I could understand why people would want him. I could understand why the club would want him. He would want it, etc. And then it'll be no surprise that my number one is Ocean Roberts. I think that makes a lot of sense. If I could pick two out with that manager, out of those five, and look, there's loads of different options, and I've just kind of flown through it a bit, and I accept that, it is what it is. If I had to pick out of those five, if I could pick and you take finances out of it and say, right, they're going to get a bit of enough back in that they'll take the job and enough wages that they'll take the job. The order would probably be Roberts 1, Steve Cooper 2, Will Still 3, Liam Rosenior. Like Steve Morrison, I don't want at the football club. Steve Morrison's League 2 manager now, and he's not exactly tearing up trees. So I think it's absolutely outrageous that he's even remotely being linked with the club. I would rather we get Nathan Jones than Steve Morrison, 100%. Because at least with Nathan Jones, he's one of us. He's a City fan. He cares. And I still don't know why Steve Morrison was sacked. So it is what it is. I'm not going to kind of discuss the Bellamy allegations and stuff like that because I think it was ridiculous. But kind of what Reese has kind of said there is about it. It is what it is. But the club ultimately, they didn't back him. They kind of hung him out to dry. And I think he had done some tremendous work, which the football club is now reaping the benefits of. Yeah, I'd rather Sean Morrison over Steve Morrison. I'd rather Saul Bamber over Steve Morrison. That's how much I don't want Steve Morrison. I don't want Neil Warnock as much as I love him. I don't want Steve Morrison. But when you think about it and you think about what the club is offering, they're probably the two most realistic options. I think that's quite sad, but it is what it is. And if you've got any questions now before we finish, do get them in because I can see there's a good few of you watching. So whether you're on Twitter or YouTube, drop your comment in below and I'll answer any questions. We've got a new episode of the History of Cardiff City coming this week with Tay Phillips. Who else have we got? Got the Flower Hour. Got to keep them on. Although, if you go back and watch Saturday's episode, in the first 5 minutes, I want you to take a drink every time Robert says, "I obviously," and see how you feel. I love you, Rob. Yeah, no Neil Harris. I don't want any of these absolute weapons who play dreadful football and absolute just horrible dipsticks. I have reached out to the chairman a few times. I believe that the delay is probably the managerial situation. Once that's settled and sorted, I expect to be able to get that back on the go. He certainly hasn't indicated to me that he doesn't want to do it. He's just kind of, I think there's been certain things in place. So we'll see. We got the History of Cardiff City, we've got the Flower Hour, and we've got some other stuff, which I can't remember. We also, if you missed it on Friday night, we had the City Legends event with Willie Boland, which was an absolute scream. What a weekend! What just a great evening. Thank you to everybody who came. Thank you to Snowy and the Rose and Crown for making us so welcome. It was absolutely phenomenal, and also I've got to say, it was just fantastic, lovely night. And I got to say as well, that was the most nervous I've been doing any of them. I've never been nervous before doing them, in fact, because there was a lot more people there, and there was a lot more people who I didn't know. It was obviously the first one we've taken out of Cardiff as well. But I got to say, everyone was amazing. Everyone was very complimentary. I'm always going to be hard on myself, but if you go by the feedback, it was phenomenal. So that's what we'll go with. And it was good time. It was a good time had by all. I took Willie back to the airport yesterday. We had a big old hug. It was emotional, but it was such a wicked weekend. And we got another one in July, 6th of July. Where's it gone? Joe Ledley. I've also, and Beck, my wife nearly broke my camera. I've also got a framed Willy Bowler Well, I've got two, but I'm keeping one. I got frame. I'm going to frame this. See, signed Willy Bowler poster, and I will probably give it as a prize at some point. But got some stuff. And we've got the Joe Ledley one there. Look, yeah, Joe Ledley, City legend Joe Ledley, 6th of July in Splott, in the Splott Cons Club. It's going to be absolutely flipping amazing, and I cannot wait for that. That is going to be the biggest event that I've ever put on. I'm excited. I don't think I'll be nervous, but I probably will because there's so many people there. It's going to be cracking. I can't wait. There's like so much stuff happening which I can't tell you about. It's going to be amazing. That's all I can say. And we've also got two others which are ready to go, and they are going to be so good. Like they are up there on the Ledley levels of good, and Willy Boland was obviously Willie. Like Willie's for a certain era, and it's for an era of people who were following Cardiff at that time. Joe Ledley is much more recent, and everybody knows him from his Wales and Celtic and stuff like that. And then we got a couple of absolute belters. Just looking for a replacement venue because the one thing that the venue fell through through no one's fault, just changing ownership and stuff. So Reece says the best thing was the tables. The fact that all the podcast crew could sit together was fantastic. Hopefully the same. Yeah, we'll reserve a table for the Ace Podcast Nation members at the end of the day. You guys are the one that have made Cardiff City World possible. And Cardiff City World is growing, and we're going to keep going. We're going to do some scout reports, and we're going to do some different things. Could have some like pre-recorded stuff and that. I do these live just to have a conversation on a Sunday, really. But we'll certainly be following the news. We've got the history of Cardiff City with Terry. We've got another thing which I can't talk about yet, which hopefully will be regular with someone who was once upon a time a Cardiff player and recently. Yeah, I can't really talk about that at the moment, but yeah, hopefully that comes off. We'll see. I also am speaking to someone else, a journalist, about doing something of his own on Cardiff City World as well. So we'll see if that pans out. Very exciting times, and the Cardiff City World is obviously it's a new thing, but if you're a City fan, it's a no-brainer. Like it's 7 days a week, Cardiff City content, Cardiff City discussion, and if you want to get involved, whether it's to do a bit of content, do a 5-minute news video every day, just rounding up the news, or you want to join in, you want to do vlogs, you want to do anything, get involved, just contact us and we'll set it up, because we want it to become a hub for Cardiff City fans to have discussion. You know, all opinions are welcome, as long as you're not a dickhead about it. Opinions welcome. Opinions are welcome. So what day is it? It's been such a wild weekend. I cannot even. It's Sunday, isn't it? Right. So yeah, stuff is coming every day this week. Cardiff City. If you're not a member of Ace Podcast Nation, I suggest you get on board. Links in the description. You get early access to tickets, so that all the members had 24 hours to get those Joe Ledley's tickets. Because there was. Like, I think those Joe Ledley ones will be gone if they're not already, because a lot of the people, or a couple of the people who were local to the Ponty show, didn't know about it. So they got in contact with them yesterday. So there was not many left as it is. It's going to be amazing. Cannot wait. I'm trying to think if I got anything else to tell you about. Got another former Welsh international coming on soon as well. Who else we got? I think Super Kev's going to come and say hello soon. The Flower Hour, I think, are doing a quiz on Wednesday night quiz in the summer, but they might have a visitor on Wednesday as well, which is not me, just saying. But they don't know who it is either. It's going to be a lot of fun. So, spread the word about Cardiff City World. Please do subscribe to Ace Podcast Nation as well. I'm not neglecting that. We have Rodri Gigs every Thursday, Rodri Gigs show. But we're also adding a second, shorter show with Rodri where we interview different people. Recording the first episode of that on the 20th of May. And it'll be out pretty soon about that. It's a VAR special with an ex-referee. And then we've got an ex-player coming on around the same time. And so we're going to have the Rodri Gigs and football on Thursday, but we're also going to have a shorter show where we interview and chat to different people, starting off with football, but also we'll be moving out and interviewing people. Hopefully, I'm hoping, and Rodri's hoping, he's going to be able to get Will on as well, which will be kind of cool, which will be nice. I got an interview with Johnny Owen coming on Ace Podcast Nation as well, which is a really, really good interview. It's such a fun time speaking to him. And that was cracking. Ex-Wales International. What else we got? Another band as well coming on. So there's all sorts coming on. I am going to try and get Leo Fortune West on as well over the summer. So let's see what we can do. Let's have a look. Let's have a look at some of these comments quickly. Quiz on Wednesday. Yeah. Rob Boyle. Reese says still very early doors for the live events, mate. It's only the fourth one. They're going to be packed up with events before you know it. Yeah, and I think even with the one in Ponty, there was a couple of people who no-showed after buying tickets because they had a funeral, and really with those kind of people who no-showed, it would have been a full house as well. So very excited by it, and the Joe Ledley one's even bigger venue, more tickets, and the majority of them have sold already. So it's going to be fantastic. As always, it's been an absolute pleasure to be joined by you all. I am going to pick up my son, spend a bit of time with my children and my wife, have a lovely rest of the evening. Maybe by this time next Sunday, we'll be able to discuss Cardiff City's manager for next season. But I very, very much doubt it, because that would require preparation, organisation, and some level of skill, ability. It's just shambolic. But we'll keep talking about it. Join us. See you soon.